Have you ever received a phone call from a number you knew you shouldn't be seeing? A number that sends a shiver down your spine before you even answer? Tonight, we're diving into a story that does just that. A story that blurs the line between our world and whatever lies beyond. It's a tale that began on a chilly Halloween night in 1984, with a ringing phone and a voice that should have been silent forever. Our story centers around a woman named Martha. Life for Martha had been a quiet, somber affair for the past 3 years. In 1981, she had lost her husband, Bill, to a sudden and tragic accident. Bill was the love of her life, her high school sweetheart, her partner in every sense of the word. His absence left a void in her heart that time had only managed to dull, but never truly heal. She kept his memory alive in the small, quiet corners of her home. His favorite armchair still sat by the fireplace, his old records were still stacked by the stereo, and his photo was on her nightstand, a constant, smiling presence. On this particular Halloween, Martha had decided against participating in the usual festivities. The laughter of trick-or-treaters and the cheerful decorations felt distant. Instead, she was curled up on the sofa with a book and a warm cup of tea, the gentle patter of rain against the window pane her only company. It was a night like any other, a quiet evening of solitude and remembrance. Until the phone rang. The shrill, piercing sound cut through the silence of the house, making Martha jump. She glanced at the clock. It was nearly midnight. Who would be calling at this hour? Annoyed, she placed her bookmark and walked over to the old rotary phone in the hallway. Her friends and family knew she went to bed early. Maybe it was a wrong number. She picked up the receiver, a slight edge of irritation in her voice. "Hello?" Silence. Only a faint, crackling static on the other end, like a distant storm. "Hello?" she repeated, a little louder this time. "Is anyone there?" She was about to hang up, dismissing it as a prank caller taking advantage of the Halloween spirit, when a sound trickled through the static. It was faint, barely audible, but it was there. A whisper. Martha pressed the receiver tighter to her ear. "I'm sorry, I can't hear you," she said, her frustration melting into curiosity. The static seemed to ebb and flow, and then the whisper came again, clearer this time, yet impossibly distorted. It was a single, drawn-out word that made the hair on her arms stand up. It sounded like a name. Her name. Martha. A cold dread began to creep up her spine. The voice, there was something unnervingly familiar about it. It was low and raspy, as if being forced through a throat that hadn't been used in years. But beneath the static and the strange, airy quality, there was a cadence, a tone that struck a chord deep within her memory. "Who is this?" she demanded, her voice trembling slightly. The line was quiet for a moment, the static returning like a tide. Martha's heart was pounding in her chest. Every horror movie she'd ever seen, every ghost story she'd ever heard, seemed to be playing out in her own hallway. She was on the verge of slamming the phone down when the voice spoke again. 2 simple, chilling words. "It's me." Martha froze. "Me?" she whispered, her mind racing. "Me who?" It couldn't be. It was impossible. A cruel, sick joke, but the voice, despite its ghostly echo, was undeniably Bill's. It was his voice, twisted and broken, but it was his. Her hand, holding the phone, began to shake uncontrollably. Tears welled in her eyes. Tears of confusion, of fear, of a desperate, illogical hope. "Bill?" she choked out, the name feeling foreign on her lips after 3 years of silence. "Bill, is that really you? This isn't funny." The only response was that same, unnerving static, a sound that seemed to be breathing. "If this is some kind of prank, it's the cruelest joke anyone has ever played," she cried into the phone. Then the voice returned, clearer than before, cutting through the static with a chilling finality. It wasn't angry, it wasn't sad, it was just a statement, a simple, horrifying declaration that defied all logic and reason. "I'm still here." And then a final raspy whisper, "I'm in the ground, but I'm still here." After that, the line went dead. Not with a click, but with a sudden, absolute silence, as if the connection had simply vanished into thin air. Martha stood frozen in the hallway, the silent receiver still pressed to her ear. Her mind was a whirlwind of terror and disbelief. She slowly, mechanically, hung up the phone. She checked the number on her caller ID, a new feature she'd recently had installed. The blood drained from her face. The number displayed was her own. Or rather, it was the number of the phone line that had been registered to her and Bill. It was the house line. The call had come from inside the house, but that was impossible. She was the only one home. She checked every room, every closet, under every bed, her heart hammering against her ribs. The house was empty. The doors were locked, the windows latched. There was no one there. The call didn't make sense. The number didn't make sense. And the voice of her dead husband. That made the least sense of all. For days, Martha was a wreck. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat. Every time the phone rang, she would flinch. She told her sister, who, while sympathetic, gently suggested it was a prank, or perhaps a vivid dream brought on by grief and the eerie atmosphere of Halloween. Martha wanted to believe her. She truly did. But she couldn't shake the chilling certainty of what she had heard. It wasn't a dream. It was too real. A week later, still haunted by the call, Martha felt an inexplicable pull to visit Bill's grave. It was something she hadn't done in months. The cemetery was quiet and peaceful under the gray November sky. She stood before his headstone, the cold marble bearing his name and the dates that marked his short life. She laid a small bouquet of flowers at the base, her mind replaying the ghostly phone call over and over. As she stood there, lost in thought, the cemetery groundskeeper, an old man named George, approached her. He had known Bill and offered his condolences when he passed. "Afternoon, Martha," he said gently. "Haven't seen you in a while." Martha managed a weak smile. They spoke for a few minutes about the weather, about the changing leaves. Then George mentioned something that made Martha's blood run cold. He told her that on Halloween night there had been a strange occurrence. A powerful lightning strike had hit the cemetery during a brief, intense storm right around midnight. It hadn't hit a tree or a building. It had struck the ground directly. George pointed to a patch of freshly turned earth, not far from where they stood. It was right over the oldest section of the cemetery's underground telephone and electrical conduits, and it was just a few yards away from Bill's grave. The strike had caused a massive power surge, frying some of the cemetery's lighting and, according to the phone company, causing a bizarre series of electrical crosses and shorts in the old, decaying underground lines. Some residents nearby had reported strange static, crossed lines, and even hearing faint disembodied voices on their phones that night. The phone company had dismissed it as a freak electrical event, a one-in-a-million anomaly caused by the lightning hitting the antiquated copper wiring buried deep in the earth. Martha stood there, staring at the patch of scorched ground, her mind connecting the dots. The lightning strike, the underground phone lines running right past Bill's final resting place, the static, the voice. Was it possible? Could a freak act of nature, a bolt of lightning, have somehow created a pathway? Could it have momentarily charged the very air and earth, allowing a voice, an echo, a memory from the other side to travel through the old copper wires and into her home? It was a wild, fantastical thought, one that defied science and logic. But in that moment, standing by her husband's grave, it felt more real and more plausible than any other explanation. It wasn't a cruel prank. It wasn't a grief-induced hallucination. It was a message, a glitch in the fabric of reality, a brief, impossible connection. Bill's whisper, "I'm still here," wasn't just a ghostly phrase. For Martha, it became a strange, terrifying, and yet somehow comforting assurance. An impossible phone call from the cemetery, telling her that even in death, a part of him remained. Martha never received another call like that again. The mystery was never solved, and the phone company's report remained the only official explanation. But Martha held on to her own truth. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and the wind howls outside, she thinks she can almost hear a faint whisper in the static of an open phone line, a final, loving goodbye from somewhere beyond the veil. What do you think? A freak electrical event, or something more? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into the unknown.